Okay, welcome back. Well, I'm super excited to go over what we're going to talk about in this video today. Essentially, we're talking about the art of impeccable service. You know, why did I choose the word impeccable? Well, essentially, impeccable means flawless, perfect, without fault, virtuous service. This is what you and your team want to aim for. So this video is going to be a great video to watch with your entire team, something that you can watch again and again. And I've been practicing now for 10 years. And I always get this question from patients. They always ask me, hey, how do you hire these wonderful people? Or, what do you do to find people like this? Do they come into your office, with this type of personality? Or is this how they normally are? And, it's a little bit of both, it's a little bit of that natural talent. And it's also a lot of training and practice, Some of the people that work with me, they're not naturally perfectly outgoing and flamboyant, all that stuff, and energetic and bubbly all the time. Nobody really is, right? But we want to create that atmosphere in your practice. We want to create that feeling of an impeccable service, and that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. How do we create impeccable service that's beyond just, hey, you know what, I went into their office and they were good. No, I'm talking superior, flawless, ethically virtuous. Like, how do you make it so that you're just taking your office to another level where people come into your practice and they're essentially just blown away by the service that you're offering? So after many years of just being blessed with just amazing reviews and feedback from patients, I started thinking like, wow, what is it that we do that makes it so impeccable? And what are the specifics about the training that we give our team that make them bring out their higher service elements and bring those forward and bring them to their day on a daily basis? So watch this with your team, and what each and every one of us have to be doing in the practice is we need to bring those qualities that we have within ourselves and bring them out to that point of excellence. And the first thing, we're going to go over 4 boxes here. This is what I call the Impeccable Service Box. So there's 4 boxes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to talk to you about the one thing that kind of connects everything together. So let's just jump right into it. What are the 4 main elements that you have to harness and train your team so that way you can grow that element of just impeccable service in your practice? Well, it starts with 4 things. And the first one is cheerful acknowledgement and presence. So what do I mean by that? What's a cheerful acknowledgement and presence? When a patient comes into your practice, you want to acknowledge them immediately. So if you're in the front office or if you're just walking up to the front or whatever it is, as soon as they walk through that door, as soon as they walk through, you need to give that energy out. And that's what I call that cheerfulness out. You need to give them that cheerful acknowledgement and that attention, that presence. So as soon as they walk in, that's number 1. And the way we do it in our office is usually we do it through a name. We just call them by their name. Hey, John, how you doing? Or, wow, great to see you today. How is the day outside? How's the weather? Or talk if the weather's not really that good where you're living, but if you're having some crummy weather, then talk about something else, But acknowledge them. Acknowledge that they're there. Don't just keep looking at your screen. And, if you're on the phone, just take a few seconds and be like, hey, John, how you doing? I'll be right with you. Good to see you. And then back onto the phone. You need to bring that cheerfulness out. And that's in you. That element is in everybody. But we need to create a work environment so that way we can actually support those qualities of being happy. And the more you bring this out in yourself, the happier you're going to be in your day. And this is going to create a great platform for you as a front office person or even as the doctor to really just bring those elements out so that way you can feel them yourself, okay? So the first thing is that cheerful acknowledgement and presence. And I put the word presence in there. I know we've talked a lot about that in this course, but presence is attention. It's being there, being focused, not being distracted when you're with that person. The second thing what you want to focus on is you never want to say no, okay? Always make a way. Never say no, always make a way. And here's what I mean by that. Let's first of all, let's write that down here first. Never say no. Always make a way. Okay? Never say no, always make a way. So here's what I mean by that. If a patient asks you, hey, can I come in tomorrow to get my cleaning done? And you're looking at your schedule and you're like, man, we're pretty booked out for tomorrow. You know, the hygienist is booked, the doctor's booked. You know, the normal and the most quaint answer to give them is, no, we don't have an appointment tomorrow. I can't do it. Instead of giving them that flat-lined answer, respond by saying, you know, we're actually pretty booked up tomorrow, but what I can do for you is get you in the next day or get you in next week that same day. And if that doesn't work with them, they're like, yeah, I really want it for tomorrow. You know what I can also do is put you on our hot list, which is our cancellation list. So we'll put your name on there, and if anyone cancels for tomorrow, if anyone reschedules, and we usually have people rescheduling, we'll get you in for tomorrow. And that's another suggestion. So you get my point, and you're not always going to give them the opportunity that they really wanted, but you don't want to just outright and tell them, no, we can't do that for you. That applies to every element of your business. You know, I'll give you another scenario. If a patient calls up and they got their teeth whitening done, and they go home and they're not too happy with their teeth. They're like, you know what, nobody noticed my teeth. They weren't really that much whiter, and I paid like, you know, $200 to get them whitened. You know, well, the one thing to do is be like, hey, you know, well, we can't really guarantee how much whiter they're going to get. We don't really have a control over how white the teeth are going to get. And that's as white as your teeth are going to get, because that's how your enamel is, and that's as white as your enamel gets. That's one explanation to give them, and that's a clinically valid explanation. But the better way to do it is like, you know what, I acknowledge what you're saying, I understand what you're saying, and it may not feel as white as you wanted them to feel. But unfortunately, we can't really control, you know, how white your teeth get. And if your patient here is asking for a refund, you don't want to just say, hey, no, I'm not going to give you the refund. One thing you can do is, hey, let's work something out. Maybe we can apply half of what you paid for the whitening towards your other services, maybe a cleaning or something else. Work something out with them. You know, my point in that whitening example is that you don't want to just outright say, hey, someone comes to you and says, hey, the whitening didn't work, I want a refund. No, you can't, don't just use the word no. People don't like that. Give them the service. Always make a way. And how am I making a way there? By saying, you know what? I know you weren't too happy with it because you didn't think it got to the point we got to. That's as white as your teeth are going to get. We use the most state-of-the-art whitening technology. But here's what I can do for you. I can take half of what you paid and apply it to another service. That's making a way. That's making some new element, bringing a new element of a solution to that patient that wasn't there before, right? So figure out a way to make things happen for patients. You know, you're on the phone and a patient calls you and says, hey, I'm lost and, you know, I can't get to your office and I'm over here. Well, the simple thing to say is, you know, I don't know how to get there from there and I don't know where you're at. Well, that's not really the best answer, right? Because that's also saying no to the patient. The better thing to say is, well, just hold on here, Jackie. Let me look this up online. Let me just look it up and let me see what I can do for you. Let me see how I can get you here. And if that doesn't work, ask somebody. Always figure out a way for the patient. Never tell them the word no, you know. Now, don't get me wrong. If the patient's like, hey, you know what? I don't want the root canal done. Just do the crown on it. I know I'm in pain. I don't want the root canal. Clinically, you have to be a little bit different about it, obviously, because if you are the doctor and you're making clinical decisions, you can't be changing your treatment just because of patient's preference. But I'm talking more from a service element and a service standpoint. Now, I also want you to keep one other thing in mind here. As we're going through these 4 elements, remember, there's that mastering the phone section. You know, that impeccable service starts on the phone. So I'm not going to be addressing a lot of that in this video, but make sure you watch that section, mastering the phones. So that's number 2, never tell them no. Number 3, what's the third thing that we always do in our practice, that we strive to do, that I want you to train and harness that in your team? We remember specifics. We remember specifics about the patient. So let's write that down. Remember specifics. Okay. Remember specifics. What does that mean? Well, aside from just remembering their name, which I hope you do, and if you don't know it, you can look at the schedule and see when they're coming in. The second thing you got to do is just remember little things about their life or their lifestyle or something about their family. Hey, you know what? How's your dog doing? You took him to the vet. Is he okay? Or how was that, wedding that you went to last weekend? Oh, I know you mentioned that you were planning a trip this coming summer. How's that going? Remember those specifics, okay? None of this stuff has anything to do with dentistry, but that's what service is all about. Okay, it's about remembering the little things that really make a trigger into that patient's mentality and say, hey, you know what? This guy or this girl or this person here really knows me and understands me and cares to know about me. Remember some specific elements in their life. And as you do that, not only are you going to feel better as a person because you're getting to know another human being, but it's going to make your day richer because, you know what? You're getting that quality out of that interaction. It's not just this dry, hey, how you doing? You're here for your appointment. Remember some specifics about them. Talk to them. Conversate. And I think that's a very natural way to go when it comes to service. Service isn't always about giving them something or, giving them a cool cup of coffee with your logo on the cup. That's not what it's about. It's always about that human element. The more you incorporate that human element into all these 4 things, the better it's going to be. And remembering specifics about a person, specifically remembering some key things about them, is one of the best things you can do to really create that relationship and increase that rapport with that patient. So what's the 4th thing that we really aim to do with every patient? You've gotten these 3 so far. What's the 4th thing you got to do with every patient? Every patient. You got to smile and you got to follow up, right? Smile and follow up. It's really important. As corny as it sounds, a lot of times we'll get so busy in our day and we'll be doing our thing and we'll be on the computer or we'll be in between patients. You'll be working on a treatment plan or you'll get a phone call. You'll forget to say, hey, how you doing? And just be happy about things, I know I probably look really corny doing that, but it's really important for you to do that, to engage with that patient. Smile and follow up. What is that? What I mean by follow up? Well, service is extended to a deeper level with every patient or customer, whoever you want to call them. It's extended to a deeper level the minute when they leave the office and you follow up with them. Let me give you an example. If someone comes in and they had an extraction done, you can give them the best service here, and if you don't really follow up and ask them, hey, how are you feeling? Maybe in a few days later, it's great, but it's not impeccable. It's good, but it's not excellent. We want you to go from good to great, right? Good to great. There's a difference between being good and a difference between being excellent or impeccable, flawless, just awesome. I want them leaving your practice feeling like, man, I've never gotten this type of service from most businesses. So follow up with them. If they got perio surgery done at your practice, simple phone call. Hey, how you feeling, John? How's everything feeling? Did you end up taking the antibiotics? How are you doing? And we look forward to seeing you the next week. You, the doctor, can do that. I try to do that with a lot of my patients, especially some patients that we've done surgeries on, extractions, perio, any sort of major dental procedure. It's nice to do that. They tell their friends about it and they're blown away, essentially. So you don't have to do it with every single patient. If you do a filling on someone, you may not have to follow up with them, but maybe you can do it through an email, or maybe you can write a nice card to one of your patients if they referred somebody to you, right? So the art of following up should always be permeating your practice. Everyone in your office should know that, you know what? I need to somehow, if this is a good candidate, I need to follow up with that person. Not everyone, but some key patients that come into your practice, right? Let's write that down. Smile follow up, okay? You see, the art of giving impeccable service revolves around starting with yourself first, right? You have to put yourself into that peak state, into that state where you're energetic, where you're present, and you're ready to go. And you're telling yourself, hey, the more I give of myself today, the more I'm gonna be tapped into those higher qualities of myself, and the more satisfied I'm gonna feel while being here and being at work. So we wanna create a higher element, a higher calling at work, aside from just doing your daily tasks. Tap into those higher things. Give that impeccable service. Make it happen. Use all 4 of these boxes to your advantage. Every day, ask yourself, hey, how cheerful am I? Am I acknowledging our patients? Am I present with them? Am I always finding a way for them? Do I remember specifics about my patients? Do I remember those little things that make a big difference? And do I smile and follow up with the patients? Now, here's the other thing. There's one element right here that holds this whole impeccable service box together. This one element holds it all together and it carries it all. If you don't do this one thing down here, then guess what? A lot of this, what you just did here, is gonna make you look like a one-hit wonder. Oh, I went into the office and, they gave me good service and it was good, but it didn't go anything beyond that. Now, here's what I mean. You have to really tap into this element, and it's the element of consistency. Your service turns from good to great, to good to excellent to impeccable when you're consistent with it. You have to be super consistent with this idea of giving impeccable service. So let's write that down. Consistency. I think I spelled it right. So the idea of consistency, you have to be consistent every time that patient walks into your practice. That same element of service has to be there. And this is what's going to separate you from a patient just having a good experience than a patient going home, writing about it, putting it on Yelp, or giving you a review on it, or telling their friends. This is the difference. If you're consistent with that service, the patient's actually going to go home, it's going to stay with them. If you just do it once, you're a one-hit wonder. Nobody remembers those guys, right? So, think of all the music artists out there that came out with a great one-hit single and bam, you didn't see them again. You don't want to be that with your service. You want to be impeccable. And the way you do that is every time they come in, this is what you give them. Every time. If you did this the first time and you're cheerful with them, guess what? Now you've put yourself into that whole new standard. You have to be cheerful with them every time they come in. And I know some of those times it's going to be tough to summon that element up in yourself, because to give somebody that energy and that presence, you need to have it within. And I want you to exercise summoning those things up. And the more you use that cheerfulness and that positivity and that presence, it's just like a muscle. The more you use it, the more, powerful it becomes. The stronger it becomes, and the easier it is for you to summon it and use it and give it back to that patient, right? So be consistent. Don't just do this once. If they come in a week later, you have to give them that same energy. You also have to remember something specific about them, and you need to be able to follow up with them if you need to, okay? So this is such an important element. If, this is the difference between going into a Holiday Inn and a Four Seasons. Well, maybe more than that, right? But this is the difference between that separates the greatest hotels and resorts in the world then from the ones that are good. They're good, but they're not phenomenal. They're not impeccable. What's that difference? Anytime you go into, most times when you go into like a Four Seasons or a Ritz-Carlton, or think of your favorite resort in the world, anytime you usually go into that, even if you're not staying there, when you do walk into that place, you can predict a level of consistency that they're willing to give you. A level and a standard of, hey, I want to hit all 4 of these elements. All the hotels will do this. Any great chain, any great brand will be doing this. They're going to do all 4 of these things. And your practice shouldn't be any different. You should consistently give this service, and trust me, as you start doing this, you'll see patients will go home, they'll write you reviews, they'll write you cards, they'll call you back, they'll refer friends. Your practice will grow beyond your wildest dreams. You know, that's how we got 600 new patients last year in one of my practices. We got 400 in the other office. How do we do all that? You know, yeah, the dentistry is one part of it, but the biggest element of that is that impeccable service. You need to dial this stuff out for your practice. Watch this video again, you know, harness it with your whole office, your team. And I know everyone on your team, if you're watching this, I know you're all capable of giving this type of service to your patients. Because let me tell you this, the more you give, the better you feel about yourself, and the more challenged you feel emotionally, and the more fit you're gonna get emotionally. You're gonna be challenged to give sometimes because it's not easy to give everybody that energy. But you know what? The more you do it, the stronger you get, and the more emotionally fit you become so you can deliver that impeccable and that world-class service to your patients. I'm excited that you watched this. Let's get things rocking. Get started today. As soon as you're done with this video, start giving some impeccable service to your patients. Good luck. I'll see you in the next video.